Hi, everybody. Just me. Um, I had a couple of people, Count Contessa, Count Contest, something like that, um, asking about paranormal activity and if I had any stories about that, which I have told a few. I told one about living in a house. And there was a bad storm and tornado, and the ghost there in the house spoke to me and was with me and wanted to protect me and my unborn baby. And the next day, I, because I was told that it was my husband's grandfather. But I'd never heard any stories. And I asked my husband, he said he didn't know anything about it. His one grandpa was still alive, and the other one um, took his life, but not there in our home. So I, the angels told me to talk to his grandmother, the one whose husband had taken his life. So spoke with her the next day, and she confirmed that it wasn't her husband; it was her father who had been shot and killed in that house. And apparently, it was he who was talking to me and protecting me and my baby um, during a bad storm and tornado. Pretty cool, huh? Um, so, yeah, I got a name for being the person who could talk to spirits because she, Grandma, said that she didn't tell that story, and she had never told me that they had ever lived in that house. I didn't know that. But she lived there when she was a child. So her father had been chasing around with one of the neighbor women, and the husband caught them and chased her father back home and shot and killed her father in front of the whole family. Um, so yeah, but I didn't know. Another story I told was about the same husband. Um, he and I fell asleep one night holding hands, and um, in the middle of the night, we both had the same dream. And we dreamt that we were floating above his grandparents' home. And we both saw his grandpa and his uncle walking out of the house and out into the woods to cut some wood because they needed firewood. That's how they cooked, that's how they heated the house. And we watched them, or I watched them, walk out to the woods, and the uncle grabbed the chainsaw and no more than got it going and started his first cut, and he collapsed. He had a heart attack. And at that, very moment, his soul left his body and floated up to us because we were above them. And he floated up to us, and he told us that he loved us and he was glad that we were there to say goodbye, and that, you know, he wished he didn't have to leave so soon, but, take care of Grandpa, make sure Grandpa's okay, get someone out there for Grandpa. Well, when I woke up, I right away mentioned it to my husband, and I said, Uncle Gaylord had a heart attack and died this morning. He said, no, he didn't. That was Grandpa. We looked at each other like, oh boy. And I said, Did you have a dream where they went out to the woods to cut down wood and one of them had a heart attack and died? They floated up to us and said goodbye. Oh, he was scared. He was so scared. Needless to say, he never held my hand again when we were sleeping. It was funny. Um, but in about an hour's time, I got a phone call. Uncle Gaylord had passed away of a heart attack. He was 50 years old. Um, and my husband at the time was so freaked out, like I said, he wouldn't hold my hand again when we were sleeping because he knew that I had the ability to do these things and I accidentally did it. But I think things happen for a reason and they happen the way they're supposed to happen. Um, Another story that I have told was the story of my sister's house that she purchased that was very badly haunted. There was an old man there, for sure, who had died. He was the farmer who owned the land, and he was wicked. He was mean. He was evil. And then there was a young man that this old farmer had killed, and nobody knew what had happened to this young man. But he had been killed by the old farmer and buried. I was the one that, me and my sister's dog were the ones that were led by the angels or the spirit or whatever, um, down. Well, we were called down to the basement by my sister, and then the angels got my attention and told me to look in the corner, and there was a cellar door down there. And I said, "What's in there?" And my sister said, "I don't know. It's been locked, and the last couple of owners of the house said, it's been locked and they didn't open it up, they just left it." Um, well, I insisted that my brother in law take a uh, lock cutter, bolt cutter, whatever you call it, and take the padlock off. So he took the padlock off, and the dog immediately went right to a spot, sat down and started sniffing and started digging. And every hair on my body just stood up on end. And I said, "Oh my God, there's a body in here." And they said, "No." I said, "Yeah, there is. Somebody's buried there." So my brother-in-law, I don't think he would have done it just because I said so, but because their German Shepherd was digging there too. Um, he decided, what would it hurt to dig? This guy he was a hard worker. I mean, he just never afraid of hard work. So he grabbed his shovel and started digging, and after he found a couple of human bones, he quit digging and called the police. And we knew that it had to trace back to the old farmer because the people who had owned it um, or purchased it from the old farmer and then purchased it from those people and from those people. And then my sister, um, nobody had opened that door. They had all left it locked up. And so the police came, and sure enough, they dug up more bones. There was a full body there, and it was a male, a young man. Um, we never, got the story as to why this old farmer would kill the young man, but um, the young man told me it was because he was in love with the old man's daughter. and he was going off to school um, for some kind of science. I didn't understand exactly what kind, but he was going for some kind of science. And I don't know if he had gotten the daughter pregnant or if it was just that he was leaving her, but the old man got mad and killed him and buried him in the basement. So that was that story. At that time, I was only 15, so I was too young to cleanse the house or um, work with the angels to send the young man to where he needed to be. So that didn't happen that time. Um, but uh, as I got older, I started doing that kind of work because I realized I was capable of doing it. And the angels taught me how to allow them and how to use them to send people or spirits who had passed into the light and to um, command demons to leave. And I ate a cracker. I have a couple crumbs on my lip. Um, so, I've done that work. Now that I'm older, I don't go to the homes anymore and do it. I do it distance cleansing. So the angels go to the homes and the angels do the cleaning. I do a remote view. So I do remote viewing of the area, of the home, of the people, of the property, and the properties around there, because sometimes it can all be connected. In fact, I'm going to tell you this story. There was someone in Pennsylvania who was having a problem in the neighborhood, and they said that they believed it was a ghost because um, lights were going on and off, and uh, cabinets and cupboards were opening and closing, and they were hearing noises, and uh, um, there were things happening outside in the neighborhood as well. And the neighbors had gotten together and were talking about the fact that it was happening in like 4 or 5 homes right in one spot, in one area. And so I was contacted and they asked me to remote view it and then um, find out what was going on and cleanse it if I could. So I remote viewed the area and I saw these old houses, nice old houses, but they were about 100 years old, maybe a little more. Um, and there was an old well back away from the houses, oh, maybe 100 yards. It wasn't very far. Um, and I was drawn to that well. The angels were drawn to that well. There was something dark and deep in that well. So the angels and I started, working together to try to communicate with whatever it was. Now, if it's a demon, it generally won't, you know, communicate back and forth unless it's just being abusive and trying to scare and control and manipulate. If it's a spirit, usually, not always, but usually you can communicate with it and talk to it back and forth. Anyway, this was a spirit that was down there. And the spirit told me and the angels that he had been killed there in the area and been dumped in the well, and that there was a demon who had been there before he was killed and put in the well, and the demon caused the people to kill him and put him in the well, and that the demon was still there, and that's why he couldn't leave. The demon was holding him, his soul, hostage. So I contacted the people in the area and I told them what we had found, and they said, you're not the first one that said this. We've heard this story before, but you couldn't know that because you're not even from the state. So yeah, I think you got it right. And I said, well, I can, you know, send that soul off to source. Um, and the angels can cleanse the neighborhood and all the houses if that's what you would like me to do. And so yeah, they wanted me to do that. So I did. I cleansed the neighborhood and I cleansed each house. And then I got a feeling like we weren't done. And I asked the lady, I said, well, the angels are telling me we're not done, but we need permission to clean this other house. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, well, the house, it would be two houses to your right. I said, that house needs to be cleansed. And the angels would like to cleanse it for you and remove all the negativity. We did get rid of the demon, but there's residual energy there from all the things that have happened. And we need to remove that residual energy, or they're going to continue to have problems and it could even spread again. So um, she went over while we were talking and talked to the neighbor, and the neighbor said, oh, I never told anybody that we have problems here. And she said, well, it's okay because all the neighbors in the neighborhood have had problems, and we have someone who can cleanse your home if you give her permission. So I was given permission and the angels to cleanse the house. So, yeah. So we got rid of the residual negativity, and I have a lot of stories similar to that. But you would help me a lot if you would like and subscribe and comment, like Count Contests, um, and let me know what you'd like to hear about. Like I said, I can talk about aliens, I can talk about paranormal activity, I can talk about narcissism, uh, domestic violence and abuse, you name it, spirituality, uh, just all kinds of things. So let me know what you would like to hear, and I'll make sure that I uh, put a story out there for you. So blessings, love, light. Good night.